Hello, everyone. It is Jamie Joe Wright here at Madlit Musings. And today I have with us USA Today best-selling author Misty Beller, and she writes romantic mountain stories. So welcome to the podcast, Misty.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful to be back. It's
Yes,
always a lot of fun hanging out with you.
it is fun. I feel like I've gotten to hang out with you quite a bit lately because we were just at a conference together.
Yes, I got Jamie Joe in person for 3 whole days,
I
almost
got
3 days.
Misty in person. That was great. You know what I was disappointed with though? When I got home, I'm like, I never had coffee or lunch or anything with you. I was like, how did that
Oh,
happen?
yeah, yeah,
That's
because
all
we
right.
were on the go all the time.
We really were. But it was a fun conference and it was great to see you. And it's great to have you back here on the podcast to talk about your Rocky Mountain romances. And this one is specifically called Rocky Mountain Journey, right?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
which is that encapsulates my entire, like what I write in a
Yeah,
nutshell, Rocky
it
Mountains
really is.
and journey stories. So
Yeah.
I
That's
love
why I
that
keep
title.
looking at the title to make sure I have the right one because I feel like it's like your tagline, like Misty and Beller, Rocky Mountain Journey.
Yes, that really is me in a nutshell, at least
It
my
is.
writing. So
It is. It is. Okay, so I have to ask before we dive into the book a little bit, you're not from the Rocky Mountains,
I am
right?
not.
So
This,
what drew you to there for like your settings for so many of your books?
yeah, this is a question. It's probably the most common question I get.
Yeah.
I'm from South Carolina.
Yep.
I actually now live back on the homestead. I live next door to the house I grew up in. We moved
Love that.
away, moved 15 minutes away, and then we came back. So,
Didn't get very
but
far, Misty.
I know, honestly, I
Okay.
can't imagine moving away from the family. I can't
Yeah.
imagine moving for a job or anything
Yeah.
because
That's awesome.
it's just so core to our life. But speaking of family, we have family in California. And so growing up, we would drive across the country about every
Got it.
other year.
Hmm.
And we would take a different route most of the time. So one time we take I-40 across the middle. One time we take I-10 and 20 down through the south of Texas.
Hmm.
And then we take I-70 through kind of the northern area,
Right.
which is specifically Montana and
Yep.
Wyoming and I think Colorado we did that time too.
Okay.
And so I just got to see all parts of the country. And I
Hmm.
knew that I love the West. I love the
Right.
Southwest. I love the Mountain West. I love the frontier, the everything.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so fast forward a bunch of years later, when I was working in the corporate world and I had my first two girls, and I just really felt like there was something missing. Like I was just stuck
Hmm.
in a rut.
Hmm.
I was busy, but just like was not fulfilled. Um, and so I decided to start a bucket list. And so write a novel that's published was one of the things on that list.
Hmm.
And that happened to be the cheapest thing. So I thought, so that was what I started with. And I knew I wanted it to be a Western historical
Hmm.
romance, Christian, of course, because that's what I read.
Right.
And so my first book was set in Texas, Seguin, Texas, or near there, a ranch 2 hours
Okay.
away. But
Okay.
um, and as I was finishing that book, I got the idea for a story, mail order bride who goes west to the Rockies, and she gets there, and the groom's dead, but his older brother and his younger sister are there, and
Hmm.
very remote log cabin setting. She gets injured and snowed in and has to stay with them through the winter. And that idea just came alive for me.
Hmm.
And I couldn't wait to start writing that story. Um, and so when I did, I I realized this is me. This is home.
Yeah.
You know, I love the
Awesome.
Rockies. It was one of my absolute favorite places to visit.
Yeah.
But then I realized that writing like the frontier settings, not just cowboy, but frontier,
Hmm.
the really, really remote, just the majesty of the mountains. There is
Yeah.
something that you can't put words into until you
Yeah.
actually go to Montana and the Glacier National Park area. And
Right.
it
Oh, I
just does
know.
something deep inside. It's
It really
amazing.
does. It really does. And I don't think a lot of, well, I shouldn't say this. I always was under impression when I was little that the Rocky Mountains were just in Colorado,
Yeah.
and they're not. They like literally span from north to south, and
Yes.
they're
I
just
didn't
so
realize
majestic.
Yeah, I didn't realize until just a few years ago that the Utah, all the red
Hmm.
rock, Mountains, that is part of the Rockies.
Rocky Mountain Range.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it starts kind of almost to Arizona and then goes north.
Yeah.
So I actually
Hmm.
have some books that are set up in the Canadian Rockies, and those like it's just like Montana Rockies on a bigger scale,
Right.
if that's
Right.
possible. It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
amazing.
I always forget the Rockies go into Canada. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, here's the border. Do not cross. It's the Rockies. They end. They
There
just
will be
end and they
nothing
just drop
good
off.
past this border. No.
No, we love our Canadian readers and our Canadian books.
Yes.
I'm just being
Very
silly, but
much.
it is funny when you think in terms of a map in your head. It's like this goes to the top of Montana, and then the Rockies just what? They just sheer off into a sheer cliff because that's the border.
They just
No.
taper off. No, it gets even better. Even
Yeah,
better.
even better. Oh, Canada. There, that was the beginning of their national anthem. So,
Yeah.
oh, Canada.
Good job,
All right,
Jenny.
sorry, I'm squirrely today. I've probably breathed in too many paint fumes. I've been painting my daughter's bedroom, so just a little
Oh,
squirrely, but
sounds like a fun, cathartic project. You
it's been
just
actually really
painting
fun.
away.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think as creatives, we need those, I don't want to call them brainless, but more brainless activity.
Yes. And then your brain starts going down speed
Yeah,
tracks and
yes,
working out problems and coming
yes.
up with really fun characters. And yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yes.
Absolutely. It does. In fact, this one was actually reminding me of a different book that I just finished. It's an early copy, but it's by T.I. Lowe, where she's taking a
Mm,
ghost town and they're basically remodeling the ghost town. And there's painting and stuff in there. So as I'm painting, I'm like, oh, this reminds
oh,
me of the book.
that sounds amazing. Oh,
Oh,
that
it
sounds
is.
amazing. Her
It's a
books
good
are so
one. It's a
good.
good one. Okay, so Rocky Mountain Journey is book 3 in the Sisters of the Rockies series, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I
tell us
have
a little bit about it.
All right. I have
Yeah.
absolutely loved this series.
Okay.
So the main idea is four sisters, their father on his deathbed asked them to get this bead necklace back to a Pegan Blackfoot woman who had saved his life back in the
Hmm.
West in his younger days when he had gone trapping for a winter. And they could have sent their solicitor or, hired someone to deliver it and find this woman. But they decided, you know what? Our father asked us to do this. This was that important to him. We're going to do it. We'll stop our lives and do this together as a
Mm.
bonding thing, four
Hmm.
sisters. I actually have four girls. I have four girls and a little boy. So the sisters are um, sort of my four girls. I
Okay.
had planned their personalities to be the same, and
Hmm.
our characters always take on their own personalities.
They
But
do. Yeah.
so anyway, so the first couple books are them searching for Steps Right is the name of the Pegan woman. They don't
Okay.
find her, but they find her son, who's all grown up, and they realize she's in hiding. So long story short, you have to read the books to find out how this happens, but they have this ranch. It's been a few
Hmm.
years. It's been, I think, 3 years since they came west.
Okay.
By the time Rocky Mountain Journey opens,
Hmm.
and Whitehorse, the son, is co-owner of the ranch with them,
Okay.
and they have not found Steps Right. They've found several clues, and there's one real clue that's left that they haven't tracked down. And Faith is the youngest sister in the group, and she's our heroine in this story.
Okay.
She's really frustrated that no one is like actively tracking down Steps Right. Like this was the one thing that our father asked us to do, and we can't
Yeah.
just forget it.
Yeah.
So she kind of takes matters in her own hands. She's kind of feisty, like my youngest daughter. My youngest daughter is only 2, but she is very much a take matters in her own hands kind of girl.
Oh, she's the
So
go-getter, huh?
yes, yes, it's a little scary how much so.
They can be.
Um, yeah, yes, those babies.
Hmm.
So yeah, Faith starts out and she finds herself in a mountain man rendezvous. She finds a group of trappers who are headed where she needs to go. And back then, it would be extremely dangerous to travel
Oh,
yourself
yeah.
through all the treacherous terrain and the animals and the everything.
Hmm.
So she joins on with them, but she realizes that, well, even just going into the rendezvous, she dressed as a man. And she realized she kind of needed to keep that up, or else
Yeah.
it would be even more dangerous for her. So
Hmm. Hmm.
thankfully, our hero is there in the group as well. And he realizes pretty quickly that Frank is actually the girl that he met by the waterfall.
Oh, that's fun.
So he got her back, which is a really good thing, even when
That
she
is,
doesn't know he needs her back. But
yes, that's good. That's good. I can't imagine a woman in a rendezvous of mountain men doing very
yes,
well on her own.
yes, yes. So book one actually opens when the sisters are looking out over the Green River Valley at the
Okay.
rendezvous of 1837, and it's just like 1,000. That was the biggest rendezvous at all.
Right.
And it's like 1,000 men, white and native,
Hmm.
just tents and lodges and animals everywhere. And they suddenly realize how they're a little bit in over their head here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Faith got to experience that and kind of realized what the actual danger is. So thankfully, she went in disguise
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kind of stayed that way.
That's awesome. Now, you said 1837, so these are set a lot more in almost more the frontier days than the Wild West. So people need to realize that they're going further back in time on the 1875.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we kind of think of as Western
Hmm.
novels are usually set between like 1860 and 1890-ish.
Right.
In Montana, the train finally reached Montana around 1880, depending on
Hmm.
which part of Montana you're talking about. So for me, like 1880 is the stopping point. I don't write anything after
After that.
1880
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because I just love the simpler time where it
Hmm.
was so much harder to get to Montana or to get anywhere. Like you
Yeah.
had to be really intentional about it. But
Yeah.
they just it was such a different life back then. It was before
Yeah.
gaslighting or any of the modern conveniences, and
Hmm.
I just love that time. So this a lot of my books are set in like the 1860s or even
Okay.
1850s, but this one
Hmm.
moves back even more um, to really just the mountain men time. There weren't
Right.
even any forts built in that area,
Oh,
so
wow. Okay. So this is
yeah,
really the rugged terrain of the Rockies. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, yes,
It's interesting when you put in perspective the timeline too as a reader, because if you think about 1837, we're talking frontier and everything. But if you were to flip genres, that would plop you right into England during the Regency era,
yes, yes, it
which
really
is
would.
not something that you equate like frontier, mountain, and Regency, obviously two completely different worlds, but
Yeah,
same time period.
yes,
And so you're kind of like,
yes.
oh, Pride and Prejudice in the Rocky Mountains. Not
Meets
really, but
Jeremiah
yeah.
Johnson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
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 I love that.
Oh, that's kind of
Mm.
cool. And that always helps me when I'm thinking about like genres and history, like what's happening in like the English version of novels when we're reading the American, because it shows the dichotomy between the two worlds in the same
Yes,
era. And it's startling in a lot
it
of
really
ways.
is. It really
Yeah.
is. And then you think about what was happening in like the East Coast of the United
Hmm.
States
Yeah.
during that time period. It
Right.
was post War of 1812, but um, pre Civil War, of course. So like
Hmm.
20 some years before the Civil War. So there was a lot of slavery and plantations in the South, and the North was
Right.
just um, industrial kind of, and
Industrial, right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The South was really getting established as slave states.
Mhm.
And it was kind of like their economic boom during that
Yeah,
time period.
yeah.
And then you have people who are leaving it all and going to the Rocky Mountains
Yes.
because that's
Yep.
easy, right? We just take a wagon and go on all the well-paved roads.
Yeah, the wagons wouldn't get very far back. Well,
Yeah.
there were tracks that the wagons could travel, but it
Yeah.
was before like Oregon Trail kind of stuff. That had
Hmm.
not happened at all by at this point. So
No, no. Yeah, I think that's the thing too, is when you think about going out west during that time, we often think about the Oregon Trail. And having followed it on like family vacations,
oh, neat.
it's not as prairie as you think it is.
Right.
No, you're thinking, oh, Little House on the Prairie, we're just going to go on this, and it's just a rutted road, and we just take 6 months to get. No, there's like caverns, and then you just move south. Yeah, you go further south into Colorado and all of that. Well, now you're talking a whole other like wagons are pointless.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You had to be horseback or muleback was actually better, safer.
Okay. Yeah.
because the
They
mules are
is it
just much more sure-footed.
I was just going to ask that. The mules are more sure-footed than horses, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're a little contrary sometimes. We
Oh, yeah.
we my brother and I raced horses
Oh, did you?
throughout our teen years, and
Yeah.
a horse that we bought one time turned out to be pregnant, and we were excited about that because we
Mhm.
actually raised some babies. But when the baby came out, it had really long ears, and
Okay.
we realized that we had a mule. So
You
that
had
was
a
my
mule.
experience with the
Yeah.
mule, and like all the things of them being stubborn, and you just have to let them
Mhm.
do what they want to do, or convince them your
Yep.
idea is theirs. But they are so
Hmm.
sure-footed, and that was
Yeah.
mostly what
Hmm.
the trappers used. Um,
Yeah.
Not
They're
completely, but
strong too. They're
they
so
are
strong.
very
Um,
much, because they're carrying, like the trappers are carrying everything they own except
right.
the furs that they bury in a cache
Yeah.
somewhere, or
Yeah.
like their life savings that they bury in a
Right.
cache and hope isn't rotted or
Yeah. I hope
dug up by
nobody. I
wolves or
wonder how
whatever.
many caches are out there just hidden that we'll never
I hadn't
find.
thought about that. Oh my goodness. There are so many. Like that is what
Yeah.
almost every trapper did, because he couldn't
Yeah.
carry everything. Even
No.
if he had a mule he rode and a pack mule,
Right.
he still couldn't carry everything. So
Right. It's kind of like a Western pirate story without the
yeah.
boat or ship.
Oh, you
There's
should write
oh
that.
miss no, you should write that. Hey, maybe we should write it together. I'll write the modern day line of where they discover this cache and then they have to go back and find out. And then you have to write the past.
I'm in. I'm in. I'll do
I'm
it.
in. Let's do it. That actually
It
sounds
sounds
really fun.
amazing. It really
All the readers
does.
are like, yes, please. Yes, please.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. I used to take care of not, yeah, burros at a farm when I was in my teens. And
Wow.
I was the lazy farm girl. Like I wasn't real keen. It wasn't that I was grossed out by anything, but I was just like, I don't feel like shoveling manure.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
crawl up on the back of Brownie, who, very original name for a burro, and I would fall asleep. And she would
On.
just stand there and
Oh, that's
I would
funny.
straddle her stomach down and just hold on to her neck and lay in the sun and I would sleep. And then the farmer would come along and be like, Jamie, that's not what brownie's for. Get up. I just sound asleep for like 45 minutes and then Neil would
That's
just sit there and
amazing.
let me sleep on her.
That really does not sound comfortable. A lot of
It
times their
was
backbones stick up. Not
Yeah,
always,
oh
but
they do. She was wide. She was really wide.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, not
That's
everybody
fun.
falls asleep on the back of a burro, but I could sleep on
Yeah.
gravel. I'm just one of those people that fall asleep anywhere, but
Oh,
oh, funny. So, all
fun.
right.
Wow. How's the
So,
story?
yeah, you know, the things we discover on this podcast, Misty,
I know. I've been
we
learning a
don't
couple
always
things
stay on
here.
target.
Yes. Yes. But great book ideas come out of it.
Yeah, right, right. And yeah, somebody's got to do the mountain cache thing. I do think that
Yes.
would be cool.
Yes.
That would be really
Yes.
cool. So, all right. So we've got Agent 37, Four Sisters. Now there's three books, but four sisters. So is Sister Four getting a book, or is she just kind of like the cameo sister? Should
She
I not
has to have a
ask?
book. She really
Yeah.
has to have a book.
Yeah.
I'm not planning it with Bethany House.
Uh-huh.
We're moving on to a different series, but
Right.
so I don't have it worked in my writing schedule for this year, and
Hmm.
I was so torn within myself. I really want to tell Rosie's story because White Horse, which is Step Wright's son,
Uh-huh.
um, we've kind of watched a little bit of a romance build between the two of them.
You can't leave that untold.
I know, I know. Like it's so good. And Rosie, she's the big sister. She's the oldest of the group. So she's like the protective mama
Oh,
bear.
she's got to have a happy
And to
story.
watch it, yeah. So I'm definitely going to be writing her story.
Yeah.
Probably in 2025.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
readers
All
can
right.
watch for it. So
I was going to say now you're going to have a lot of accountability too. So you're just be like, where's
I've
the
said it.
story? You've
It's
said
on
it. It's
video.
out. It's out. It's out.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I love it. All right. So a mountain man rendezvous, tell me okay, what was the point of them? Like I've been to ones like around here where the reenactment, right? And it's more to get to
Yeah.
know the frontier life. So
Right.
there's really no point but the reenactment. So
Yeah.
back in those days, why
Back
did
in
they do
those
it?
days, the trappers would essentially spend from the fall all the way to the spring trapping.
Okay.
During the really harsh winter months, they would try to find a place to hole up where they would still have some traps out, but it was just so cold they couldn't just live outside.
Yeah.
But then when spring came, the summer pelts were not in good condition usually, like especially beaver, which was what was mostly trapped back then.
Hmm.
So you couldn't trap during the summer. But these guys were just in the mountains all winter. They needed a way to sell their furs.
Ah,
And they also needed supplies. So they'd pretty
okay.
much been eating meat all winter long, meat and
Hmm.
whatever dried berries they'd gathered and dried. So they were pretty starved. Probably some, I don't know, what's the thing that scurvy?
Oh,
There might have been some scurvy
dysentery,
involved.
scurvy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
all those
Yep.
things.
Fun
And
stuff.
so I forget the bright man who first created the first rendezvous, but he came
Okay.
west with a number of wagon loads of supplies, and he traded supplies for furs, and some cash, I think, as well. But
Hmm. Hmm.
so that was the one time that the mountain men could stock up on
Okay.
cornmeal and flour and coffee, and whiskey was one of the
Right.
big commodities. So
Shocker.
um, yeah, and replacement knives and gun
Yeah.
parts and
Okay.
bullets and gunpowder and just all the things. So it
So
was
it's
the one
basically like a
time a
big
year.
market.
It really was.
You
It
know,
really
if you have
was.
the Native Americans coming in and then you have the trappers and everything, everybody's got kind of like their own wares and their own specialty.
Hmm. Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
The
That makes
natives
sense.
realized that they should be part of this pretty
Mm-hmm.
early on. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So it was a big, big event. And the trappers didn't miss it if at all possible because it was
Yeah.
like their one time to get mail from the East as well and
Oh,
send
yeah. I wouldn't
mail.
even thought of that.
So, yeah.
Wow. Don't you
Yeah.
wish we could build a time machine?
I do. So
I
many
d
times I have.
Oh, it would just be so cool.
When I was a like preteen and teen, I tried so hard just to live back in that time period.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
grandparents lived next to us, and
Hmm.
they have an old 150-year-old farmhouse that
Oh, I
did
love
not
that.
have HVAC at all, heated with cook stoves,
Hmm.
and just the house is so full of antiques. So, I
Mm.
would like turn
Yeah.
all the lights off and use the kerosene lantern and,
Yep.
try to
Yep.
cook over an open fire or over a cook
Hmm.
stove. Or it's a lot harder than it sounds. Let me tell you that.
It is. My mom had a wood cook stove, like one of the old cast
Yeah.
iron stoves in our
Uh-huh.
house. And we had the modern conveniences, but she loved antiques and everything. And
Yeah.
they got it hooked up and she would try to cook on that. And it
Yes.
was so, because you can't keep the temperature even. You're
No.
constantly trying to figure out how to
Yes.
keep that.
And some woods burn more
Yep.
evenly than others.
Yep.
So pine is usually pretty good, but
Hmm.
well, of course, in that area, it's pretty easy to get pine, but you have to cut it
Right.
just right size to fit in the cook
To
stove.
fit, and
And
they're not big, the
yeah,
wood boxes and those things aren't that big. And then anywhere you put the pan, you move it. It's not like it's going to another warm set. Everything's a different temperature.
yes,
The
yes.
stove.
Okay, so with that in mind, think
Yeah.
about in my stories, especially this series, just getting a cook stove west. Like
Oh,
the wagons went west only once a year, the supply wagons. So, and they had so much like precious food and like the
yeah.
stuff that you critically needed. Taking up room in a cook stove in the
Hmm.
wagon would have been just such a luxury. But then just the heaviness, the weight of it.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
cook stoves, when my characters finally got a cook stove in book two, it was such a
I love it.
luxury.
I love it. Yeah.
So
Yeah. A
yeah,
luxury
there's
from open fire in a cast iron pan and putting
yes,
loaves of
exactly.
bread in those.
Perspective says so much.
Oh,
Like it
jeez.
just, oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I know. It's crazy. I was talking to Anne Gabhart because we were talking about her book that's set in Appalachia. And
Oh
she was talking
yeah.
about how the mountain residents there would cook. And so many of them cooked on fireplaces or open flame. And she was talking about her
Hmm.
research on how they did that. And I'm just like blown, mind blown,
Yes. Yes.
how you even got bread to cook all the way through and not be doughy and not burnt on the outside.
That's why
And
they did so many biscuits. And
yeah, that's true.
cornmeal
That makes
was
sense.
even more desired than flour because it's easier to cook with cornmeal than it is with
Okay.
flour.
All
It's not
right. That's
as
fair.
what's the word? It's not as
Finicky.
easy to mess up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Finicky's a good word.
I should probably do that because even with the modern day conveniences, I'm still burning everything. So my family's going to be like, why are we getting cornbread all the time, Mom? Misty told me it's easier.
Yes. Have you tried this cornmeal mush? It's actually really good.
Oh, I actually just found a recipe for my grandma's mush and I was like, what?
Oh
I'm
my
like, what?
goodness.
It's all typewritten on this old card and it's not very
Yeah.
complicated, nor does it
Is it
sound good.
cornmeal? Is it or is it
I'll have to
flour?
find it. I think it's
Yeah.
flour. I think this one is
Okay.
flour.
All right. Yeah.
I'll have to
Yeah. She
find it and
must have been in the East then.
She was
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, she was raised
Yeah.
in New York and then moved to Indiana, so very
Okay. Yeah.
Eastern. hmm hmm
Yeah. They
Where
had more
where
access to food supplies.
flour
So.
was more modern,
Yes. Yes.
not as inconvenient. So
Yes. Exactly.
I love it. All right, so we have The Rocky Mountain Journey for anybody listening from Misty and Beller. It comes out in June. It is book 3 of Sisters of the Rockies. So if you're going to order book 3, order book 1 and 2, and then you've got
Yes.
like a triple threat. That's awesome.
Yes. It's good. It's oh, I had so much fun with these stories.
That's
I
awesome.
really love
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. You know, I think it's great when an author is like so in love with their stories because you know that they really poured their heart and soul into those characters.
Yeah, the characters are just like real people. They really are
Yeah.
real people.
Yeah. I
And
believe it.
it's
I believe it.
amazing.
All right. So if readers want to find out more about you, best place to go is
My website would be like the starting point,
hmm
and you can sign up for my newsletter there. Actually, there's a banner across the top. I
hmm
give a free ebook or audiobook whenever you sign up for my newsletter, and that's really the way that I stay in touch with readers. It's a lot of fun. I usually send out once or
Yeah.
twice a month and kind of some
Yeah.
book news and what's happening in the Beller family kind of news, some
hmm
pictures to hopefully
Super
give you a
fun.
smile.
Yeah. Sometimes we need those smiles hitting our email
Yes.
inboxes a little bit more frequently than some of the other stuff that comes through. So
Yes, absolutely.
awesome. Well, Misty, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and
Thank you
we'll
for
have you
having
on
me.
again, I'm sure. But for now,
It's
get to writing
always
book 4.
wonderful.
We need Rosie's story
Yes, I'll work on that.
after
Absolutely.
you get all your other ones done.
Yes. It now has its place in the schedule. So
Oh, good. Yay.
good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Misty.
All right, thanks.